type players, that term generational you throw around. So they've been looking around, but they did cancel their private workout with Shedeur Sanders, which tells a lot about how they feel from a quarterback perspective and how the rest of the league feels. That it's Cam Ward as QB1, then a pretty big gap, then the rest of the field.
Okay, well, let's continue with the pretty big gap, because then sitting at number 2 are the Browns. Who do you think's catching their attention with number 2?
Well, the Browns have been very mysterious throughout this entire process. I do believe GM Andrew Berry is liking that, that sort of mystery here around the Browns and what they could do, because they've looked at a bevy of options. So I do know this. They've spent a lot of time with Abdul Carter, the pass rusher out of Penn State. They've gotten to know him very well. He has definitely felt the love from the Browns at every level of the organization, getting to know a lot of those people. So I do believe he's in strong consideration. There also is some buzz of late about Travis Hunter and that dynamic with him being so good and showing himself as a receiver at his pro day. The Browns are one of the teams that look at him as a wide receiver. So those two players are under consideration. They're on the short list, as is Shedeur Sanders, I'm told. They are still considering him, even though there isn't a lot of momentum for him to go number 2 overall right now, at least talking to people around the league.
Okay, so the Browns are literally all over the place. Defense, quarterback, and a two-way player. Speaking of that two-way player and Travis Hunter, Giants go number 3. What's the word on Travis Hunter possibly landing there with New York?
Well, talking to people that were at Colorado's Pro Day on Friday, they believe that the Giants will either go Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, whichever one is available. They have been linked to Shedeur Sanders as well. They need the quarterback. So those appear to be their options right now, but they look comfortable taking the best player available at number 3.
All right, good news. Thank you, Jeremy. All 3 days of the draft are on ESPN Network starting April 24th. See you later, buddy.
Cornette, Amina Smith back here with you on SportsCenter, and we are 18 days away from the NFL draft that'll take place at Lambeau Field. Let's bring in our NFL draft analyst, Jordan Reed, right now to read and react. So, Jordan, it looks like Cam Ward is going to be the top QB taken. However, after that, things could get interesting. It starts with Shedeur Sanders. What are you seeing in his evaluation?
Yeah, it does. He seems to be the favorite to be the second quarterback off of the board. But one trait that really stands out about him is just the poise and accuracy that he plays with. He had a 74% completion percentage a season ago. He has excellent ball placement. He's very polished, and you cannot question his toughness at all. Scouts that I talked to say that the Browns or the Giants at number 2 and number 3 overall could take him, but also a more realistic spot could be Atlanta or Denver as possible trade-up spots in order to get him. Now, as far as the weaknesses with Shedeur, things that we want to see him work on, it's just the pocket drifting with him. He has a reluctance to really invite pressure, and that's what led to 94 sacks over the past 2 seasons, the second most in the FBS over that span. So I want to see him work on that and don't invite so much pressure. If he does continue to improve in that area, I believe he has upside to be a starter on the next level.
All right, now let's read and react to Jackson Dart. What are the highs and lows when it comes to his game?
Yeah, the one thing scouts keep talking about with him is just the downfield accuracy and ball placement with him. That's something that really stands out about him, but also just the wide open offense that they were in, 11.1 air yards per target season ago. So the downfield accuracy is something that really stands out about him. He's very consistent when asked to throw the ball down the field in that Lane Kiffin oriented offense that is very open and very quarterback friendly as well. Now, on the opposite side of that, progression-based reads is something that he wasn't asked to do consistently in Lane Kiffin's offense. 34% of his passes were labeled as wide open a season ago, and he only had 8 snaps from under center. So being in a more pro-oriented offense will be a bit of an adjustment period for Jackson Dart, but he could go as high as the Saints at number 9. Overall, they had a heavy contingent at his pro day a week ago, but scouts that I talked to say a more realistic range for him is probably the back end of the first round.
All right, let's move on to Jalen Milroe, an interesting prospect at the pro level. Let's start with the positive, though. What could translate for him to the NFL level?
Yeah, Jalen Milroe definitely is a hot name in league circles right now. And the one thing that scouts keep coming back to with him is just his eye-popping athleticism. He's going to enter a very distinct group his very first year in the NFL. And those are names that include Jayden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, and also Justin Fields. Go back to that LSU game. He was absolutely terrific in that one. But on the opposite side, he still needs to improve in the short to intermediate areas of his passing game. You can go back to the Tennessee game and then also the Oklahoma games. Those are the 2 games of where scouts keep coming back to and said that he still needs some refinement as a passer. But as far as some landing spots for Milroe, the Saints is one that's been repeatedly talked about with him, and then also the Steelers as well. So look for him to go in the 2nd or the 3rd round. There is plenty of interest for Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to this year's NFL draft. That will go down April 24th right here on ESPN. Jordan, thanks so much. All right, we're 21 days away from the NFL draft. This year's taking place at Lambeau Field. Here's a look at Phil Yates' mock draft 4.0 that just got released yesterday. Cam Ward remains the presumptive #1 pick to the Titans, who have not indicated a serious desire to move down in the draft. The Browns will probably go with Abdul Carter, who's considered the best defensive player in the draft, with the 2nd pick in Yates' mock. And Colorado, that pair follows. Yates projects Shedeur Sanders 3rd to the Giants, who also brought in Russell Wilson, but have yet to solidify their long-term quarterback plans. And he has Patriots taking the Swiss Army knife and Heisman winner Travis Hunter. Yates says Hunter can change dimensions of the offense alongside Stephon Diggs. And as I mentioned, the Titans with the #1 pick. We will hear from Teron Davenport in a few. However, having a little bit of technical difficulty. Let's start with the Browns. They're next on the clock behind the Titans. Let's bring in our Browns reporter, Daniel Oyefusi. And Daniel, barring a Trey Cleveland, will have his choice of either of the top QBs or top defensive players in at #2. Daniel, what are you hearing about what the Browns will do with that #2 pick?
Yeah, the Browns have spent extensive time evaluating the top of this year's quarterback class. They had a private workout with Cam Ward last week. They're sending a group out to Colorado to meet with Shedeur Sanders for his pro day. But in talking to members of the organization at league meetings this week, they were consistent that they are not going to force a quarterback pick at 2, and they're not married to taking a quarterback at 2. They've also spent time with top prospects such as Penn State's Abdul Carter. They're expected to meet with Travis Hunter while they're out in Colorado. And owner Jimmy Haslam went so far as to say, quote, "If the right person is there, we're going to take them. If not, we'll figure it out for a year or 2 until we get that right person. We need good players. There's good players in this draft, and we need to make sure we get the right guys for us."
Yeah, very interesting to hear Jimmy Haslam also say that they made the wrong decision with Deshaun Watson as well. Daniel, appreciate the time and the insight. Thank you.
All right, let's head east to New York, who owns the #3 pick, and bring in Giants reporter Jordan Raanan. So, okay, Jordan, despite signing Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, New York has long been projected to take Shedeur Sanders. So what can you share about how they view the Colorado quarterback?
Yeah, it's actually very similar to what Daniel said there about the Browns. The Giants have done extensive work on Shedeur Sanders, right? They scouted him in multiple games this year. Brian Dable, the head coach, he went down to the Shrine game to speak and talk to Shedeur Sanders as well. But it's about opportunity cost. The Giants are not going to force a quarterback pick. They said the value has to match the pick here in this case. And then when you talk to people around the league, there is some concern of whether Shedeur Sanders' ceiling of what it is, considering he doesn't have that elite physical trait. I spoke to one executive whose team is in the quarterback hunt, and he told me, aside from Cam Ward, he doesn't feel comfortable with any of the other quarterbacks in the first round of this draft. Now, the Giants are still going throughout their process, their evaluation process. There'll be a large contingent in Colorado this week, including general manager Joe Schoen, so they'll get another look at Shedeur Sanders. They'll also get a look at